on YouTube? I go by the name of Amari, and this is my very first YouTube video. And as you can tell from the title and what you see on your screen, this is going to be an MMA focused channel. I am entering the MMA content space, and this first video I'm doing is on UFC 312 and the breakdown and the layout of the card and my thoughts, which it's only a couple of days away. But also kind of just want to give an introduction as to why I'm starting my MMA YouTube channel. And I don't know, maybe in the future it will evolve into some other stuff that I maybe want to talk about. But really, I'm just insanely addicted and just love this sport so much. I am so passionate about UFC, and really I became addicted to the sport. Watching it, talking about it, I think about it, and my friends always tell me, "Oh, Amari, you should start a podcast. You should work for the UFC." And I just started thinking, because I've been into the sport for over a year and a half, and I've been watching every single card and pay-per-view, and it's just become a tradition with my friends that every single Saturday night, we gather at my friend's movie theater and we watch the pay-per-views, we watch the fights, and it's one of the best chills we have. I look forward to it every single month. And the sport's so exciting. I watch it. I'm into it more than basketball and football at this point in my life. I think I started I felt like the first card I ever watched was UFC 294 in Abu Dhabi with Volk and Islam. And then after that, it just snowballed and snowballed. UFC 296, 298, 299, and then 300. 300 was still the craziest card I've ever watched live with my friends. It was truly an amazing experience. And over time I've just fallen in love with the sport. And I figured, why not, give this YouTube thing a try? And because when you love talking about something so much, then I figured, why not just start a YouTube channel, have an outlet where I could share my thoughts, my opinions, my breakdowns on UFC, different fight cards and news, and, see where it takes me. I think it would be pretty cool if I even have 50 to 60 people check in and check out my videos on a video basis. If I can even get 50 to 60 people that want to tune in and listen to Amari talk about UFC, then I think that would be really cool, because I could talk about UFC for hours. I bring it up all the time to my friends, and sometimes they get sick of it because of how much I talk about it and how much I hype up every time we enter a fight week. So that is kind of the introduction as to why I'm starting an MMA content channel. And also because I feel like the sport is in a whole new place right now. The UFC has completely transcended into a new height of popularity over the last 2 years. Really since COVID. COVID kind of shifted things a little bit, but obviously, the UFC was popular before that. It's had its different eras. Conor McGregor, of course, brought a whole new level in his time. But I feel like the UFC is in a whole new place in its height of popularity right now. And 2025, I feel like, is just going to be a huge year. I feel like it's the right time for me to jump in and start, putting out some content, because UFC, I feel like in 2025 is going to be a crazy year. We have some big fights in the works. I feel like there's going to be some big announcements soon with Poirier and Makhachev rumors, and, Holloway versus Oliveira. And, of course, the mega fight also, John Jones versus Tom Aspinall, and what's going to be with that. So these are all things I want to cover and talk about, and I might as well just put out a platform. And my channel is just going to be more of shooting the shit type, and, just kind of a laid back podcast discussion on UFC. And also 2025 has been off to a great start so far. I mean, Of course, we have this card in between, but UFC 311 kicked off 2025. Crazy stacked card, even though Arman had to drop out of the card. We still had Islam. Rob versus Umar was an incredible fight. Yuri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill. Renato Moicano still made it on the card. Great prelims. Just a super stacked card. And then UFC Saudi Arabia with Israel Adesanya, Nassourdimov, Shara Bullet. Stacked fight night. Basically pay-per-view worthy. Definitely better than this. And then after this, you got 313 with Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. And then Hooker versus Gaethje, which is just a banger. Just pure violence for us MMA fans to be able to see this. I'm so excited for that card, especially. It's shaping up nicely. UFC's in a good place right now, and I feel like it's the right time to jump in and start putting out content. So, with that said, let's talk about UFC 312. Now, this card is horrible. It's a horrible card. It's one of the worst pay-per-views I've ever seen. Kind of similar to UFC 297, but maybe even worse. And it was headlined by these two right here. Just like, yeah. But, we have Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. And, forgive me if, I stutter on a couple words and have like some missteps in my talking or the audio or the computer. I'm still figuring this all out. And hopefully I just get better with time, Again, we're seeing how this goes, over time. But, Dricus versus Sean Strickland. Now, real quick, just kind of give him an overview here. The middleweight division, it's a pretty active month for the middleweight division. A lot is happening this month. We just had Israel Adesanya versus Nassourdimov, and I was pissed. I wanted Izzy to win, but Izzy got knocked out by Nassourdine in the second round. Within like the first minute, clean punch. Izzy's out. Izzy's lost like his last 3 fights in a row, including to these two right here. So it's so sad to see Izzy, one of the greatest middleweights, take such a downturn in his career, because at this point, where do you go from here? Like, he set himself back way too much. If he won that fight, which I really believed he would, he could have put himself right back in the discussion for maybe a number one contenders match fight to then go for the belt again. And I didn't want the conversation to be about Izzy possibly retiring, but that's where it's come to, because he lost again. If he won, we could possibly be talking about more fights for him. But now I'm nervous we're going to lose Izzy in the sport when he's at 35 years old. But if it's time for him to go, it's time for him to go. And then Nassourdimov, a surging contender in this hungry middleweight division. Now he's going to be waiting in the wings for a title shot. If not that, then he'll probably get a number one contenders fight versus the loser of this or Kyle Baralio. But right now, he's coming off the win, so he's going to be waiting. And we have right here, Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. And this is, of course, the rematch from 297. A dogfight, for sure. But, the trajectory of these two guys is different in my eyes. Like, Dricus, he's starting to gain a lot of respect from people as the champion of this division, even though he's got a super, unappealing, puzzling way of fighting that's not, in any way, shape, or form clean. It's a very, chaotic style. But it works, I guess, And he's looked pretty good. He's coming off wins off Whittaker, Sean Strickland, when he won the title. And then his first title defense versus Israel Adesanya, which was in this past summer, 305. So Dricus has been pulling it off, getting the wins. And here he is. And I'm just going to say my prediction right now. I think Dricus is going to win. I think he's going to beat Sean Strickland, and then we could get the fight that we really want to see, which is him versus Khamzat Chimaev, who's got to get the next title shot. If it was up to me, I would have wanted to see that fight in this position already, but is what it is. The UFC felt like they need to just give Sean another fight against Dricus because of how close their first fight was, and he won the fight versus Paulo Costa, even though it was a boring decision at 302. But he won, so I guess technically that still, kept him as the number one contender. So they're getting this out of the way. They're after this weekend, we're not gonna have this loose end anymore. There should be a definitive champion to move forward and fight Khamzat Chimaev. And like I mentioned, with middleweight, after this, we have fight nights with Gregory Rodriguez and Jared Cannonier. There's Anthony Hernandez and Brendan Allen. And then after that, Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze. So a lot of action happening in this next month in the middleweight division. A lot is moving and shifting. So yeah, Dricus versus Sean Strickland. That's the main title fight. At least we have this fight on such a card. At least they give us this. So we have what to look forward to. And I think Dricus is going to win. I'm not sure how he's going to do it, if it's going to be by decision or submission. We haven't really seen Dricus knock out anyone cleanly like KO. Maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, he does have some power, for sure. So yeah, moving along. Co-main event with Tatiana Suarez and Zhang Weili. Zhang Weili is coming off the title defense win at UFC 300, the marquee event in the co-main versus, I don't even know if I want to attempt saying the name, Yao Xiaonan. I don't even know. But Zhang Weili coming off an impressive, she's one of the more impressive, women's champions in the sport, one of the more impressive UFC fighters. She's been around for a while now. 25-3. She looked great. Although there were a couple moments where I think she almost won, but then Jan came back. And then she's fighting Tatiana Suarez, who's 11-0, undefeated. I really don't know much about Tatiana Suarez, but I want Zhang Weili to win. That's just my feeling about it. But I don't know, women's fights, I'm going to be Zhang Weili is a champion. I am interested in seeing fight, but most women's fights I'm not interested in. You'll learn that pretty quickly. And also, I'm just going to cover just a general FYI. I'm probably just going to cover the fights that I'm interested in seeing. Like, I'm not going through the whole card, to the bottom where there's a bunch of people that I just don't have the knowledge or background on. Like, Rongzhu and Cody Steele, I don't know who these guys are. Like, I'm not going to break down these fights. I'm only talking about the main stuff. The stuff that excites fight fans. The stuff that we want to see. Maybe even some stuff, like under the radar fighters that are on the come up, or just intriguing matchups. Which, again, this card does not have a lot of. Like, I couldn't believe when they announced this card, that this was the official card. I was expecting, some more fights to be announced. I was looking for weeks on the website to see, who else is going to be on this card. I thought maybe like Volk or, Usman versus Jack Della Maddalena is like a featured fight. Like, if we had that fight alone on this, that would have been sick. But they were saving Jack for London with Leon Edwards. There's a sick fight. And they're saving Kamaru, I guess, for something else. Saving Steve Ercek. Saving Dan Hooker. Couldn't get any of these more well-known Australian fighters in the UFC to be on this card. 305 was like way better than this. But they're doing Australia dirty with this card. Right after giving LA and Saudi crazy cards. Justin Tafa and Taliesin Teixeira. I think this is like his debut. He's a Contender Series guy. As the featured fight, I couldn't believe it. And then you got Jimmy Crute versus Rodolfo Bellato and Jake Matthews. I don't know who any of these guys are. I'm trying my best to educate myself on these fighters to get some more hype and excitement in my head for this card. But really, it's the co-main and main event right here that I'm really looking to be watching this weekend. Nothing else I really care about or moves the needle for me. Normally on a fight card, you want to see a well-structured card with some intriguing fights, with some storylines behind them, have maybe some upcoming talent, versus a well-known vet or household name. Um, these exciting fights to trickle out throughout the main card as you work your way up towards an amazing co-main and main event. And the UFC has been doing that lately. They've been putting some great co-mains and mains together. We got Pereira versus Ankalaev and Hooker versus Gaethje on 313. 311 was supposed to be Islam versus Arman, which was a sick fight. And Merab versus Umar. I mean, that one right there was one of the best pairings in co-main and main I've ever seen. That was sick. Even though it didn't exactly stay the way it was. But yeah, this card, I don't have much else to say on the card. I mean, I guess we could talk about this, right? Alexandre Topuria versus Colby Thickness. Another thing to learn about me very quickly is Ilia Topuria is my favorite fighter in the UFC. I love Ilia Topuria. I'm a huge Ilia Topuria fan. And I'll be probably making videos very soon on Ilya's current situation at lightweight. If he's going to fight Volk in Miami, the rumors with Islam. There's a lot I would like to talk on that. But yeah, Ilya is actually going to be cornering his brother, of course, in this fight. And Volk is going to be fighting Colby Thickness in his corner. So they're both cornering their guys, which is kind of, cool if you think that the lead up is going to be to a Topuria versus Volk main event in UFC 314 Miami. But that's still up in the air, I guess. And Alexandre Topuria, he looks like he has all the skills, the skill set, of course, and the same kind of crisp boxing style like Ilya with a good grappling background. And I hear that he hasn't fought like the best talent before joining the UFC, like a lot of cans, a lot of scrubs. But I don't know. I have a feeling that he's gonna win this fight. He's gonna win his debut, and he'll be introduced into the UFC pretty nicely. He definitely looks the part for sure. With Alexandre Topuria, so that's pretty cool. To have him making his debut on this fight. I remember I was so excited when they announced that he would be joining. And that is that fight. Then you have the Joker girl, Wayne Kong versus Bruna Brazil. Don't have much on that. And then a bunch of other I don't have anything else to say on this card. It's pretty damn awful. But yeah, so that's my overall thoughts and layout on the UFC 312 main and co-main event. So stay tuned as I continue to learn through this process and begin my MMA YouTube journey. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time.